Okay, so here's a second video talking about push-ups, and this one we're going to look at balance boards. It's not always about making things heavier to make things harder, and this is an example of where you can really increase the challenge in a different way. So firstly, before you're going to do these, make sure you can do just a standard push-up on your toes from the floor. If you can't do these, there's no point going to this next challenge, all right? So you need to be able to execute a good push-up from the floor, and it must be on your toes. All right, so with the balance board, the challenge of this comes from, if you keep both your feet on the ground, there's no point to doing this at all. There's no difference with being on the floor. You know, where the instability comes from is when you remove one foot. So you need to have your hands right in the center of the black square, and you can't grip on the side. So a lot of people try to put their fingers underneath. That's not a good strategy at all. Right now, whatever foot you leave on the ground, it's got to be in the middle, because what you're trying to do is create a very even triangular base, where normally we've got 2 feet on the ground and we're almost like a rectangle, so it's very stable. Once we narrow the base, now you become unstable, and this is where you'll see the push-up moving in the frontal plane. So the frontal plane is in this way, which normally it never moves in that way because it's so stable. But that's the beauty of this push-up, is that your job is to keep it from hitting the ground, and you must have an even push between the left and right. So if you're a bit more right-hand dominant, you'll find this very difficult. The thing that's quite deceptive is just how much the hip flexor works in this. This is where a lot of people don't realise just how much work it's actually doing. When you do these type of push-ups, sometimes it's actually more your leg that's getting tired and your abs than your arms. Your arms feel like they've got more to give, but it's the control through the core and the hips keeping everything balanced enough to be able to do it that becomes the problem. All right, so that's the simple version of the unbalanced push-up using the balance board. There's a second one that I use where we make the triangular base uneven. All right, and I'll explain to you what I mean by that when Mel sets up, and it's a bit easier to see when we've got the coming from this rear view where you can see the feet, how it's positioned. All right, so before she had her foot, so this foot here that she's leaving the ground, she had that foot here, right? So we had a base that was very even. Now what she's going to do is we're going to have an uneven base. So this means that there's more chance of the board falling out to the left side here all the time, because it's just so uneven, and that's where there's a huge amount of degree of work to be done through the core and the hip here in stabilizing as much as the arms. All right, so let's have a look at how it goes. So you'll see she's got to almost place that foot out level, or she's gone the left foot here, sorry. She's got to place it level with the hand, the right hand as such. Do you see what I mean? And it's a significantly greater challenge. See how it's not as easy for her to control it anymore. And you'll always make a few mistakes when you're doing this the first time until you overcome them and adapt to them. And obviously, you know, I might keep the reps short. I might do 3 or 4 on one side and then 3 or 4 on the other side. And as you improve, it's like 5 or 6 or 7. But you always want to do a few less because you still got to do the other side. You're only halfway. Otherwise, you could end up doing 10 on one side and 2 on the other. All right, so let's have a look at the other side, see how she goes on this other side. All right, and you might find there's a much weaker one too. This is where you'll realise just how much the leg, she's gone the same leg again, but you get the idea of how to make that quite hard. All right, so again, like, it's not always about making things with load to make things heavier. Sometimes the best challenge is complexity, instability, multi-layering it with other things. This is where, in this case, we brought in the frontal plane into an exercise that's nearly always in the sagittal plane, and also bringing in balance training to an exercise that never sees it because it's always in a closed chain where it's super stable. So sort of flip the head with the different skills that you require, but the action is the same. The action is identical to the closed chain stable version. It's just you need other skills within it to execute it perfectly. All right, so it can be a great addition to your training if you're using it wisely. And you can really bring in a whole new set of skills that you didn't have before. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that. See you now on our next video.